You're watching Alaska's news source, KTUU, Channel 2 Anchorage. And now, Alaska's #1 news team, Maria Downey, Jason Moore, John Carpenter with sports, and Jackie Purcell with the weather. This is the Channel 2 News Hour.
The battles of World War II were fought all over the world, including right here in Alaska.
And among those defending the last frontier were a group of elite commandos, part Army, part wilderness experts.
In tonight's assignment, Alaska, John Carpenter and photographer Eric Soule introduce us to the men of Castner's Cutthroats, the Alaska Scouts.
It's been 65 years since U.S. forces ousted the Japanese from the Aleutian Islands of Attu and Kiska in World War II. The memories of battle fading away, along with the brave men who fought there. Among those, an elite group of soldiers, known officially as the 1st Combat Intelligence Platoon, the Alaska Scouts, or Castner's Cutthroats.
The idea was conceived by Colonel Lawrence Castner, and he decided that Alaska is unique enough, and that indeed the Japanese were going to invade through here, so that they needed a special type of person to be an Alaska Scout.
10 miles outside of Glen Allen, 87-year-old William Billy Buck spends his days carving. In 1942, he was serving in the Army when he heard about the Scouts.
At the time, I met 4 Alaska Scouts, and they stayed with us at the tent, and right away I seen that that's the outfit I should belong to.
So he went over his commander's head and sneaked a letter to General Simon Buckner, who decided Buck was just the kind of man his outfit needed.
I got a good bawling out about it for not going through channels.
160 miles south of Buck's homestead in Palmer, 91-year-old Ed Walker keeps himself busy writing books. He has 4 to his credit so far, including one on Castner's Cutthroats. He heard of the Alaska Scouts while serving in the Army in Hawaii, and tried 3 times to get a transfer to them.
The Sergeant Major gave me a finger at the spit bar, and he said, "You still want to get in the Scouts?" I said, "Yeah, you're damn right." I knew some fellas in it. But I said, "The colonel won't let me go." He said, "The colonel's in Washington getting the general, and the lieutenant colonel will sign anything I put in front of him." I says, "Mister, you got free hamburgers and beers the rest of your life, if you could do that." And he did, and I got in.
Spit and polished, the Scouts were not. The unit was a true hodgepodge of Alaska outdoorsmen.
We got along really well. We had Eskimo Indians, Aleuts, and all miners, prospectors, and fishermen. We even had a professor from the University in Fairbanks.
The one thing they all had in common, they were all comfortable in the wilderness of Alaska.
If the Navy sometime dropped us off on some island, we had until our food ran out, but that's what we were picked for, to live off the country. So we lived off ducks, geese, and seals, or whatever was available in the area.
We could live, and we lived well, incidentally, especially Aleutians. God, we had everything to eat down there that you could have.
The men provided a lot of their own gear, from the clothes they wore to the guns they carried. Of course, some found comfort in Uncle Sam's supplied firepower.
I always carried a BAR. I figured if I'm going to have a battle with somebody, I want some firepower, and that was the best gun we had at the time. A heavy old devil, but I carried her, and that designated me first one to hit the shore and secure the beach for everybody else.
The Scouts' primary mission early in the war was combat intelligence, spying on the Japanese forces that occupied the Aleutian Islands.
We could hear the Japs start their planes. There was 12,000 Japs on Kiska, and we were close enough on the north end of Amchitka to hear the engines start in the morning. And we would did-a-da-da. We all learned did-a-da-da, ADAC, and they'd send up a couple of P-38s and fight right above us. We always had a show. Never lost an airplane in all that time. They knocked those zeros out, boom, 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 nothing to it.
Fate, always fickle in war, seemed to smile on the scouts. In all their action, only one scout was killed in combat, though they all survived close calls.
When we landed on Kiska, we got off a destroyer with rubber boats, and we had, by that time we had some commandos with us, and we're landing in offshore wind, trying to go head for the shore. Rubber boats, the wind was against us, it was offshore. So just about the time when we hit the beach, there was everything went white, the whole mountainside, the beach and everything, and that destroyer that we got off of hit a Japanese mine and exploded, I think. It hit the mine, and the magazine of the destroyer, I think, blew. No survivors at all.
6 decades later, there are only a few scouts to recount their exploits. At their height, there were 66 Alaska Scouts. Now, only 3 are left. The Alaska Veterans Memorial Museum has stepped in, doing its best to ensure the voice of the Alaska Scouts is not lost.
The story was so interesting, and it's a story that nobody knows. Again, it was a secret organization. Nobody knows. These guys really are unsung heroes. Because, again, so much of this was classified, so therefore nobody knew what they were doing.
At the Anchorage Museum of History and Art, a display honoring the Alaska Scouts graces a hallway.
To get them the recognition that they deserve, because it's a story Alaskans just do not know.
For Billy Buck and Ed Walker, their time in the Alaska Scouts was a simple answer to the call of their country. It was, as they saw it, their reasonable service.
I felt it was a very great honor.
I would say that that the fact that we there was a job to do and we did it. It's a feeling of accomplishment.
John Carpenter, Channel 2 News.
And after the completion of the Aleutian campaign, the Alaska Scouts spent the next 2 years mapping the terrain of the state until they were disbanded after the war in 1946.
In addition to Billy Buck and Ed Walker, Earl Acuff is the only other surviving member of the Alaska Scouts. He's 90 years old and living in Virginia. Carp, what an amazing story to spend time with these men. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. I got paid to do that.
Yeah.
To talk to these guys, and the great gentlemen they were. We had just a wonderful time, and this is just scratching the surface of the Scouts. You couldn't spend 6 minutes and tell anything about it.
I'd love to hear more. I know you got a lot of tapes, so hopefully we'll do some more on that.
They're good guys, so we appreciate their help.
In the meantime,
there's sports to do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, off to sports.
I do other things here. I multitask.